Welcome. Welcome to Lost in Our 40s, a podcast by women, for women, where we talk about everyday life and how to engage to make it better. Karibu sana. Hey, so this is that week between Christmas and New Year 2024, and I have been watching some movies. And one of the movies I watched, I'm a little excited. One of the movies I watched is called Damsel. So, this spoiler alert, do go watch it. I think it's a good movie. Go watch it if you haven't seen it yet. And if you have, let's go along. What we're doing is we're talking about the different people who were in it and just giving them attributes on how they can relate to our everyday lives. The position that these different people in this movie play. If you were the damsel, what these different people would represent. So come on in, come on in. Mm. So, damsel. The storyline is this. If you won't go watch it, or if you want to hear the storyline anyway. So I watched like a short clip that just got me entertained. Like just the movie preview was super entertaining because we know all these stories about princesses and they get married to the Prince Charming and then they live happily ever after. Not so. So, so in the clip, they actually show things going wrong. So maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me slow down. So to slow down, the story is there is a girl, she's a princess, and their land is going through famine or something like that. They are in a lot of trouble. They don't have enough food to feed the populace. And her father gets a message of a far off prince in a prosperous land who would like to marry his daughter. Excuse me. So that union would be amazing because that is exactly what the land needs. And she's initially concerned, how can she marry someone she's never known? What is this? What does this mean for her life? What is going to happen to her? And they reassure her on the way. They reassure her, and then they go off to visit this far off land that is rather difficult to get to. And when they eventually get there, they see that it's full of greenery and prosperity and everything just looks amazing. That should have been the first red flag. Okay. So everything is amazing, everyone is happy, everything is great. Then she meets her new in-laws to be, so the king and queen, and they are super welcoming. She's shown to her room where she's going to spend the night the day before the wedding, because the wedding is immediate. She meets her husband to be, the prince, and they have a lovely conversation, and everything just seems beautiful. They seem to connect at some point. This just seems to be like the lovely, lovely fairy tale that we are all used to. So I think part of my glee is that I've always been a little, well, not always, but I've been unhappy about fairy tales. These stories that we're told that teach us a certain perspective on life. So when someone comes up with a tale that has a twist on these fairy tales, I was very happy. So anyway, back to the story. So what happens is on the day of the wedding, they have the ceremony. It is beautiful. Then there is they call it like a ritual that needs to be carried off by the family that she's married into. So the prince takes her and they go up a mountain and there's a cave. And there is again all the royal family. Her own family is not allowed to join. And at some point, her father had been run to the side and told something that made him very grumpy. And at some point, her mother in law had started getting the impression that things here are not as they seem. But all said and done, she's already married. So then she goes up to the cave. There is a ceremony. And part of the ceremony is getting a cut on the palm. And she shakes the hand of her husband. And then he holds her in her arms beautifully, lovingly. He tells her to close her eyes. And when she closes her eyes, he throws her down into the chute. It's not even a chute, into the cave. And there her misery begins. So the story is that there is a dragon, and the family has an agreement with the dragon that it shall provide three females into from their family into to the dragon as sacrifice, ritual sacrifices. So, to cut a long story short, it's a story of how she tries to get away from the cave, and there have been so many other women who've been thrown in before her, and she sees a long list of the names of the people who were there. They have tried different ways of getting out, and long and short of it, she does manage to get out. So this is hence the spoiler alert. She does manage to get out, but then there is more trouble. She needs to go and fight with the beast, and eventually she befriends the beast. She manages to tell the beast being the dragon, that the dragon had been cheated by the people of the village, and that all the women that it had been killing were actually innocents. And the story of the dragon is also that it had three children itself who had been killed by the king, the predecessor. So these are ancient stories. Before this particular family, the royal family had had an agreement to sacrifice its three daughters. I don't know, every so often, as a replacement for the three eggs of the dragon that king had killed. So anyway, that's the story. Now to the interesting part. The interesting part is that we're going to look at all these characters in this movie and do see it. I think it makes more sense after you've seen it. All the characters of this movie to just paint a picture of who they are in society today. And we start with the girl's father. For me, the girl's father is a representation of patriarchy. He sees women as sacrificial. They're there to play a part. Because he had been told, just before the marriage takes place, he had been told that his daughter was going to be killed. And it was only on the basis of this that the wedding could go on. And he feels bad about it later and comes over to try and rescue her. But the point is that he probably saw that she has a younger sister. She's replaceable. It's for the it's for the better of the kingdom. Without this marriage taking place and this kingdom providing all the resources that all the other people need, their kingdom will fail. So he sees this as a sacrifice worth having, and that is patriarchy in my mind. Patriarchy is this view of women as replaceable. Women are a means to an end. You need women just to be able to serve a greater good. It's okay to trample over women so long as the society stands. That seems to be the main line under patriarchy. That women, yes, they can come and go, but the good of society is worth much, much more than any single woman. Never so as far as a man is concerned. That is a conversation that the patriarchy never has, but that's what role I ascribed to the father. Okay, then the next is the stepmother. So the two children, her name is Elodie, I think, the heroine of our story. She has a sister, a younger sister, and I presume their mother had died early on, and the father remarried to their stepmother, Angela Bassett. And she is the relationship between the girls and the stepmother is interesting. Elodie herself seems to have a closer relationship with her stepmother, and she listens to her a little more, but with a bit of a distance. And for that, I saw that as the community of women. The community of women, we have somehow been taught to see other women as threats. We don't open ourselves up fully to other women. We see as though they are not necessarily out to get us, which is really what I saw in this case. Because when her stepmother came to tell her that she thinks that the wedding should not go on, that there's something really, really wrong, she did listen to her, but she did not fully trust her. It was not her own mother. They were not kin. They were not related. So she listened and she thought it was interesting, and she gave it a bit of a distance. And that's like the distance I see in society women have been trained to give to each other. There could be jealousies, there could be fighting, but more than that, there is some level of distrust that can commonly lie within female relationships. And my personal view is that it's not real, it's not true. It's something that we've also been trained into doing, trained into thinking that women are the competition. Could be for the scarce and what's the word, super important resource that is the men. So from that perspective, if you're competing against other women for men, you're thinking that no, 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 you cannot align yourself with other women. And this affects women's friendships, because over time, and there are different wounds that we can have from our past that determine how we relate to women. And having had different experiences with different women might provide the mindset that women are generally one way or the other, and more often bad, to be not to be trusted, to be kept at arm's length, to be managed from a distance. So that's what I thought about that. Mother-in-law. So the mother-in-law is super interesting, and that she's the one who's like the brains of the whole operation. We never hear the king talking, as far as I recall. He doesn't say anything. He just stands there. We just know that he's the king because he's standing next to her. But she's the one who has orchestrated everything. Her son seems to be under her power. He does what mommy wants. The son being the prince who's the groom, the one who's getting married. So mother-in-law, I've put it as society. Society that provides a version of reality that is not actually true. So the version of reality provided in this is that you shall get married to him, and you shall live in the land flowing with milk and honey, and you shall live happily ever after. While at the back there is really some uh, scheming, some great scheming going on, because she's very cold actually. In the movie she's very, very cold, and that's what gives the stepmother the idea that something here is wrong. And that I felt that that was really society. Convince you that what you yourself, it convinces you that that's what you yourself want. So even if she also had some inklings, she had been told by her stepmother that something here is wrong, and she also had probably some inklings because she saw another girl at some point and wondered what's that happening there. She saw some flame somewhere. When she asked about it, she didn't really get a real answer. So even though she had some own inklings at the back of her mind that something here might be off, she then went with the flow, because this picture that has been painted in front of her is what she would want to strive for. Society does this super great job at painting what we should be like, what you should want. You should want the amazing huge house and the 17 cars and the um Instagram lifestyle and all these kind of things. That, and society isn't like a person. So when I say society, I just mean all these factors that are building up to create a story within the mind. It could be relatives who tell you that you're meant to do this, you're meant to do that. And in some cases, I think in all cases, it's probably from a good place. It's not often, there's not often malice, especially and from that perspective, especially when you're young. Like when you're a child and you're being told this is what you should do, this is what you should not do. But then there's all these teachings that are piling on and covering up what you yourself want, what you yourself know, what you yourself can feel. And that there takes us to the sister. She has a younger sister who's maybe around 9, and she's joyous, playful, just a girl having the time of her life. And I have tagged her as Elodie's pure self. This is her pure self in her essence. This is her before society put in all these other things on top of her. So a purer version of her, the light that shines within, that she must find, her raw self that can do anything. That is the sister. And put that way, because what happens within the story is at some point the sister is taken in her place. When Elodie escapes, the sister is taken into her place, into the dungeon, and then Elodie goes back to try and rescue the sister. And in so doing, what I feel is that she is uncovering her true self, because it is in that action of going back into the cave to rescue her sister that she has to face herself. She has to face the dragon. She sees her father coming there, and she has to. She understands that the father then knew, and then she has to face the reality that her father had then decided to sacrifice her. She has to face her past. She has to dig through the women, all the other women who had gone through the cave and had suffered, who had died in the process. She is then carrying the light for them. She has determined that she is the one who's going to change everything. This story will not end in the same way for her, and that is it. Facing our past, facing what you've gone through, facing like a rebirth in terms of facing what demons have been plaguing you in the past, looking them in the eye, which is what then she does with the dragon, looking them in the eye, facing them down, and fighting for her life, because she realizes that it is only through finding her pure self and fighting through the darkness that she can get out into the light. And with that, the dragon is her ego. I like that one. Her dragon is the ego, blinded by society into persecuting her. So the ego being the part that is most attuned to what society is saying. The ego believes that if you lose face, that's going to be the end of the world, because you must stand up in society. Sorry, excuse me. You must stand up within society. You must have this higher, elevated form. And it is then this ego that she has to face when she's facing the dragon. She has a conversation with her ego. She has a conversation with the dragon, telling the dragon, "You have been cheated." Telling her ego, "You have been cheated." Everything that mother in law, which is a society, has been telling you, the kingdom, what those people have said in terms of having daughters that they're giving you to sacrifice, is not true, because we are not of their blood. We are not royals. It's only the mixing of the blood that has between the king and the prince and the bride that has made her get the scent of royalty. But we are not royals. All these people you've been killing are not royals. And so you can think of also all those girls who had come before to be all the previous versions of herself, the versions of herself that wanted to do wonderful and amazing things, but that she shut down. And she said, "You cannot do this. This is not for us. This is not our place. Close your dreams. Our dreams are not valid. We cannot do any of this. Forget it." All those versions of her are what the ego has killed, the dragon has killed. And in facing the ego and saying, "You have been cheated, what has gone before has gone. We cannot resuscitate the versions of ourselves and the dreams that we killed. But but we can start afresh from now." Starting afresh from now, she has saved the child, the pure self. She has then accessed her internal light. She is then the fire. The dragon cannot touch her. She is then the fire. She shows the ego. She shows her ego the deceit, and she tames her ego. That's the word I was looking for. She tames the dragon, and with that, she can face all of society. She goes back into the kingdom. She's powerful. Nothing can stop her. Nothing can stop her. She saves the next version of herself that was meant to be slaughtered, because the prince was on his way to. There was actually a wedding ceremony where the next bride was meant to come in. She saves that one and tells her, "Take your family and run away," meaning that that is a dream that she can achieve. That is a version of her that is saved. And with that, she is full light. She is free. She has accessed her higher self. She does not fear anyone. She does not fear anything. Who can harm her? Who can harm her? She is in her divinity. She is the essence of what she was meant to be. And that is what is available to all of us. So, watching these movies with a different perspective, I maybe it comes from not watching all that much TV, but I absolutely enjoyed it, and I thought that that was fascinating as a movie. And yeah, I hope you go see it again if you've already seen it, with this tapestry in mind, at the back of your mind. Yeah. So that's all from me today. And I wish you a happy new year, incidentally. Wishing you a happy new year. I should tell you, Date Like Cleopatra is almost out. The book is almost out. Date Like Cleopatra, The Good Girl Flips the Script. That's a book that I've authored, and I shall keep you posted on the dates. But it will be out very, very soon. It has come out faster than I had anticipated, which is why I hadn't spoken about it as much. But there you go. That's that's something that's in the work. And that book actually does talk about these things that I've just mentioned here. I also have a course on my website, shirondune.com. The course is called Finding Me, and it is actually on the subject of finding yourself, finding your pure self, your higher self, your true self. So if that's something that's interesting to you, please go on to shirondune.com. I shall put the description in the notes and look into that. I love you all. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I appreciate you. Until next time. Bye bye, gorgeous. Oh.